Live from parts unknown, you're listening to Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast, the only wrestling podcast on the planet, we think. Sit back, relax, prepare for positivity to run through your veins as Simon Miller gives you your weekly dose of powerful pro wrestling audio. It is Miller Time.
Hello and welcome to Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Simon Miller and surprisingly, this is a pro wrestling podcast. Now, we're not going to have too long of intro because it's my favourite episodes that I do in this podcast series. You can go back and listen. I think this is the fourth one. I'll check that as I'm putting up, but I think it's the fourth one. It's the one and only. It's my man. It's my friend Jim Sterling. Jim, how are you doing today?
I coughed when you did your intro because I'm not professional. Probably don't use that side of the recording. I'd leave that on the cutting room floor. But I'm all right. I think it's actually the third appearance because we did Royal Rumble and I think we did SummerSlam.
I can't remember now.
Survivor Series, I want to say, because I think I talked about Triple H.
I think we did. All I remember is that I enjoy our wrestling conversations immensely.
Yes. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, that's what I know the most. And so, yeah, we do have a lot to talk about. I will apologise, because if you have listened to those episodes, I did say that Jim would be back on after WrestleMania, but hey, life is life. Life gets in the way. The most important thing is that we have managed to get it done, which we're doing right now. So I guess, look, we'll start there. I know it's a while ago now, but I still think it's interesting, especially because we're in the fallout from WrestleMania now. I mean, we really are. We're in the lull period. Any fun that we were having with nice big ratings and interesting stories has gone into that transition period. Now, WrestleMania it was too long. I think we can all agree with that. But a lot of people saw it as cliched as a show of two halves. But, you know, as it went too long, people got bored of it. I liked a lot of it, but I'm intrigued to see... I actually know because I follow you on Twitter. However, I'm intrigued to see what you thought about it anyway now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've got to agree with what everyone's been saying with the length. I mean, what was it, 7 hours?
You watched the pre-show, 7 hours.
Wrestling.
Yeah, I had to watch all of it.
And I did, I watched the pre-show just because I knew Matt Hardy would be in the Battle Royale.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was rewarded for watching that, at least, with Bray Wyatt.
I love that bit.
Become the Deleters of Worlds.
I loved that at the time. I thought that was awesome.
I'm happy for both of them. I'm happy that they seem very reinvigorated. But that was good. I've started listening to a lot more responses from the community now. I said I wasn't going to get into that when we first started speaking. But we said before we started recording that I've sort of fallen back into I've watched enough WWE to become quite bitter and cynical and jaded all over again. So I'm a lot more complainy now.
So good.
As a consequence, I've started watching more stuff beyond just my more local indie wrestling. So I'm now more into Ring of Honor. Started watching some more New Japan. Just finding the best subscription solution at the moment to that'll work for my viewing habits and how I like to view wrestling in the main room.
Yeah.
But once probably get a Roku or something. I've been watching Ring of Honor on the Fight app for a couple months. I'm a little bit behind because I know they've been doing the New Japan tour at the moment, the crossover stuff. If I'm following that correctly.
Yeah.
So I think the last thing I remember was I watched last Monday. But yeah, I've been getting more into that. Discovered Dalton Castle, obviously. Fell in love with Dalton Castle, obviously. Even been watching a little bit of Shikara Pro because the main guy I work with at Pro Wrestling Ego is a big Chikara fan. So
what do you think of that? Because that is crazy. It's crazy.
I think, and I've seen a lot of complaints about it. Sometimes if I'm really bored, because I'm not too fond of him as a person or some of his beliefs, but when I'm bored, I will listen to Jim Cornette just go off on something.
Yeah, I find he's a fascinating person. But yeah, I'm with you. Sometimes he says stuff, and I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
you gotta get with the times.
He's very on the money when it comes to a lot of in-ring stuff. But yeah, yes. He's an old school man, and he wants to stay that way. But yeah. So I don't agree with a lot of what he says about exposing the business and killing the business. It was exposed a long time while he was still very active in it.
Absolutely,
it was
100%.
So when he goes off about like the Young Bucks and the shit they do, or like Kenny Omega like fighting a doll or a girl, it's like wrestling's already exposed, so I think things like Chikara, where it's like, just like, fuck it, let's be the Mortal Kombat to the Street Fighter here. Let's just throw the kitchen sink in and do whatever. Let's have magic, let's have mind control, whatever, it's all good. I think that is a very modern, progressive response to an exposed business. To lean into it, to yes, admit that what they're seeing isn't necessarily real, but treat it like the fiction it is, and why not weave a fun universe into it? Why not have a match where a football match breaks out halfway through? Why not have a count out by somebody just falling asleep while the whole audience goes shh, shh, shh.
I love it.
Why not have Hallow Wicked as like your big bad? To me that. And you can have the serious stuff as well. Like, no one thing takes... It's not a zero-sum game. In a world, again, where the business is already out there. It's the perfect response to wrestling's fake. It's like, well, yeah, we're not saying mind control's real. We're not saying this is... It's like a TV show. It's like an adventure. It's like a play. It's like... But with, this wonderfully coordinated, improvised, which is always the best part to me, athleticism. And
I totally agree with you.
I love all types of wrestling, the ridiculous to the serious. And have
you ever seen Lucha Underground?
Not yet, but I've had many, many people tell me I need to see it.
I think you'll love it, because if people get resurrected in Lucha Underground, people die, and they just come back as a different character, which is absolutely ridiculous.
And when you think about it, is that really so different from The Undertaker?
No, it's not. 100% not.
He's a ridiculous gimmick, but he's been so protected and written with such gravitas and seriousness. You buy it. I buy it. I'm terrified of The Undertaker. Anyone in their right mind would be.
Yeah, no, I totally
aside
agree.
from the fact that he's also a legit badass. But the character is so imposing, because he was written that way. He was performed that way. And we know that. We know deep down it's a silly... He's wearing eyeshadow and it looks a bit silly, especially these days. It's a bit Alice Cooper, but without... Actually, no, he's got the hair back now, isn't he, as of WrestleMania. But,
yeah, it does.
We know that there's not urns that control people and lightning being summoned, but we buy into it because it's treated as real by the universe. The same goes for watching a comedy movie. The same goes for watching Chikara. It's the comedy version, and that's okay.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think when it comes to that argument, my always argument, I think we've chatted about this before, is surely because pro wrestling isn't real, or however you want to describe it, that's why we should go crazy with it, because we have, we've created this wonderful world where we can do stuff like this. Because if we do go back to where, okay, it has to be legit, then you wipe out, I'd say, 70% of what actually I enjoy in wrestling right now. I mean, you can even bring it back to someone, I mean, maybe not to this degree, but I think there'd be an argument. How does Fandango exist in that world? Why is a ballroom dancer now a wrestler? That doesn't make any sense. No one's going to buy into that. And that's the one thing that, I find really weird when people say they don't like the more, we'll call it the insane side of wrestling. Because I'm like, but that's the best bit. That's like, I'm sure we're going to talk about it. We'll talk about it now. The fact that Braun Strowman and a 10-year-old child became tag team champions. Now, I get it. I'm torn. There's one side of me, the fan side of me, and I love it because it made me laugh. I was happy about it for about a week mostly because I had to talk to someone that didn't know about pro wrestling. They said, "Oh, I saw that event. How was it?" And I said, "Oh, a 10-year-old won the tag champs." And their immediate response was, "But not an actual 10-year-old." I was like, no, literally a 10-year-old. And I just thought, and I love it, but then I can put my critical hat on and look at the tag team scene now and Braun Strowman and go, okay, that probably wasn't the smartest thing in the world, but I'm glad we can do that stuff, and I would hate it if all that went away. It'd actually make me upset because it's weird and crazy, and that's why I love wrestling.
Well, that throws up the interesting question because obviously, in an environment like Chikara, a 10-year-old winning a match would make perfect sense, and you wouldn't worry about well, this bear is this character because you don't worry about that side of it when they're actual characters, when they're actual, they've got stories you're invested in, not just who's winning, who's losing. Not that wins and losses don't matter, because that's all part of the story. You know, you want the scrappy hero to overcome, or you need a villain to have a lot of wins to be serious. Like it does matter, but it's not the total sum of the parts. But you got to ask the question, if you're popping while it happens, if it's a good time while it's going on and you have a lot of fun watching it, but then almost like a hangover, the next day you think about it more seriously and you're like, actually, that kind of, you know, takes away from the bar. You know, it makes them look really a bit rubbish. The fact that Braun Strowman gave the titles away the next day, it makes them look a bit like trash. And
that I didn't like that, because he had to go to school. That was a bit, okay, now we're going in a strange direction.
Especially now that they're teasing him working more with Lashley, it's like, and they don't seem to know what to do with him. It was like, that baffles me. We'll probably get to that at some point. You don't know what to do with the man of Vince McMahon's dreams. You don't know what to do. Is that like that episode where Wile E. Coyote finally catches Roadrunner and just doesn't understand the concept? Like that, I don't know. But he just abdicated the titles, and so then you think, well, now it's just rubbish. So I guess it's like short-term gains, really. It's do you want a long-term satisfying solution, or do you just want to get people cheering in the moment before they realise this is a bit rubbish?
Yeah, and that's the argument, right? That's the argument. At the time, you're loving it, but then you can kind of see the fallout. And like you said, you've got Vince McMahon's dream person, but, you know, if somebody argued with me that this affected him, I'd be like, I can't, it's difficult for me to say that he hasn't, because since WrestleMania, like you say, he's been in this sort of halfway house team with Bobby Lashley, doesn't really seem to have a specific direction. I know at one point there was a rumor he was going to win the IC title, that didn't happen. So, yeah, you could argue that it derailed him. Yeah. And then, you know, I think that's a fair... that would be a criticism that would be hard for me to argue. That's a very specific situation. I'm actually glad we had this conversation, and it does tie into that, because it's almost like that scenario with the 10-year-old child almost represents both sides of the argument wonderfully, in the sense of what I both like and can see as a struggle with pro wrestling, especially because, right now, I mean, I don't know whether anyone will listen to this. We are, in the middle of May. Braun Strowman is directionless, I would say. I don't really know.
Absolutely. And
I don't know.
It baffles me. It baffles me that they won't pull the trigger on the guy. Because if you want to, like, they keep talking about who's the guy, we need the guy. Roman's the guy, that's the big argument, we need Roman. WWE, of course, wants Roman to be the man, but he's still not touching John Cena in the merch sales, which they obviously care about more than kind of attracting an audience now, because they're making more money from a shrinking base, which is a great business model right now, but maybe not for the future.
Well,
they're not very future-proofed right now.
It's the other thing I wanted to talk about. We're just going to jump around because it's just coming up too naturally and too organically. But that's the other thing I wanted to talk to about, because it is almost like, I don't know if you've been reading up about all the TV negotiations they've got going on. I'm obsessed with it because I'm weird. But it's just, basically what they've done is, it certainly looks like come the end of this year, they're going to secure a new TV contract for 2020. And, next year they're going to be paid more in TV rights than they ever been paid before. And yes, in 2020, when they renew it with whoever that one be, it's going to go up. So they're going to sort of start, at that contract where they ended this one, and that's going to keep increasing. So I say the contract goes on until 2024. They're going to earn so much money in the next 6 years. However, if the bottom does eventually fall out of television, like they admitted that, the network is not doing the numbers that they intended it to do.
Yeah.
2024 right now as we're talking seems like, flying cars and robots. It's 6 years. Do you know what I mean? Like, in 6 years' time, that's not a long-term business model at all. And again, if the bottom does fall out, and they are doing this stuff with, their insistence with Roman Reigns, someone like Braun Strowman coming up but not really taking advantage of him, as you would assume, mucking around with the Universal title, which I now think they are doing. I liked the whole Brock Lesnar thing for a while. Now I'm like, why can't my world title be on television?
Yeah.
That all can have a serious knock-on effect in less than 10 years. And you're 100% right. What is the long-term plan? What do you do if one of those contracts they're now relying on goes bad or disappears entirely?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I heard that, I forget who had the conversation, but someone talked about The Miz and his whole talking about making the Intercontinental title prestigious. And the conversation came up that he's a heel and is lying about that and is bollocksing about that because, of course, he cheated to win it and whatnot. But where that falls apart and where he, not necessarily the performer, but the character of The Miz fails as a heel, is that was true because it was the biggest title on Raw and still is, in the same way that Seth Rollins is now making it the most prestigious title in the WWE. Because the WWE title itself is being treated like a secondary thing. So, and Monday Night Raw has always been the big show with the big ratings. You know, I hear from friends of wrestlers who say they only watch Raw. They don't ever bother watching SmackDown.
Really?
So, yeah, it is the show. So that's the title everyone's seeing, the Intercontinental title. So The Miz was right. He was the top heel because he had the top belt. And so, yeah, that's a frustration, certainly, the Universal title barely being seen, which, you know, kind of makes it a bit extra silly that it was the big main event of WrestleMania, which again we'll get to. One of the most fascinating matches I've ever seen.
Bizarre.
Yeah, it's like a train wreck. If the train was full of clowns, that's sort of weirdly fascinating and also macabre. But yeah. Back to. Let me just loop around quick to Braun Strowman. He's the guy, right? If you look at the way people are responding to him.
Exactly.
And we're talking about everybody, like not just the kid demographic who might cheer for Roman, like the kids and the women who cheer for Roman. Everybody is with Braun Strowman. And the guy has always reflected the period of the time. It's never been a sculpted, chosen one. That has, to my knowledge, never worked.
No, it really hasn't.
In WWE or anywhere else. Any business. You know, I make my bread and butter analysing the game industry, and I see that there all the time. So many people will see a popular thing and just set out to be that thing. Or they have this preconceived notion about what the game will be and who it will appeal to. And that's always the killer, is they'll focus test, or they'll focus on a small portion of their audience that already agrees with them and tailor just to that. And then you get into a Roman Reigns situation.
Yeah.
If anyone follows the game industry enough, they'll remember a game called Fuse. And right now, Roman Reigns is the Fuse of WWE.
That's the best comparison yet, that is. That's amazing.
What people want right now isn't Roman Reigns. They want a big, shouty, angry man who smashes stuff up. Yeah. And honestly, especially looking at the way things are in America, that's how a lot of people feel everywhere. It's an angry time to be alive. In the 80s, it was rock and wrestling. That was reflective of what people were like then. You know, the 90s, we want to talk about Stone Cold, of course. The WWE will proudly tell everyone how plugged into the social zeitgeist Stone Cold was. Everybody hates their boss. Everybody wants to beat up their boss, and he reflected that. 2000s, of course, millennium, future forward, very sleek and cool for the time period. Everything was focused on that. And that was The Rock of the time, especially with the fact that he basically acted like a heel no matter how over he was as a face. It had that attitude of being an ass and being rewarded for it, and that was that sort of thing at the time. And right now, I think just a lot of people want a cathartic. That's why one of the best things last year, and it did involve Roman, was what I called Roman Joe Strowman, when Samoa Joe, Roman Reigns, and Braun Strowman were just kicking the crap out of each other, just smashing each other with big meaty fists. Last year was nothing but Roman Reigns breaking things. Even if it was clearly heavily gimmicked stuff, it was still fun to see. Recently, there was this song going around where someone took what was the song? The Nickelback song, the famous one they did. And it's called but they rewrote it to This Is How I Got Over, and it's a song about Braun Strowman, sung by Braun Strowman. And it's hilarious, and they just go through all of the things he smashes up. And people are responding to that, and it's clearly resonating. He's the guy. Seth Rollins, I think they're starting to work out, is also very capable.
He's up there
of carrying that show. I think he's very capable. I think if we want to draw analogies, though they're never perfect because they're always different time periods, we could be looking at a Bret Hart to Strowman's Hulk Hogan. We at sort of
love it
from that snapshot of history, but obviously they're both a lot younger and hopefully, fingers crossed, have so much further to go. But I think they're the two faces right now that can carry the brand. Is you got your Seth Rollins, who people love and has been putting on really not just for WWE standards, but like the match he had with The Miz at Backlash. I mean, sorry, the rest of the card that had to follow that. Like he's clearly captivating people. So they've got two guys. Two!
I know.
Any company should kill for that.
They're so obsessed with one, though, that it is now... Because we talked about this before as well. I was fine with Roman. I was like, if Roman wants to be your guy, that's great. Just don't ruin, the rest of the card and I can get through it. But now, it's that classic saying, right? Shit rolls downhill.
Yeah.
Now, it does feel a bit like you've just said, why on earth do we have this big guy that Vince McMahon loves, that the fans love, that has not necessarily good matches, but good Braun Strowman matches, which, especially when you look at the current wrestling landscape, which I've got no problem with, but it is smaller guys than back in the 80s having very athletic matches. Yep. And, the world is cyclical. Now it's like, actually, I want to see the big dude beat the shit out of some people.
Yeah.
And that's fun because, what's old is new, as, we mentioned before.
And not only that, what's amazing is they've got, their two guys reflect both attitudes. We've got the main, what I would consider the mainstream cultural view of the anger and the smashing and the destructiveness, but the insider wrestling view of, especially with NXT right now, the smaller, leaner wrestler who can do what some would derisively call the flippy shit, but a lot of people love because it's great athleticism, gymnastics. It's wonderful to see. Yeah. I love seeing it. My travels and my dissatisfaction with a lot of the booking, writing, whatever in WWE led me to look at other stuff. I fell in love with Ring of Honor. Obviously, I mainly wanted to just check out Cody because my own forays into wrestling have me doing the Stardust thing because I was a big fan of Stardust and Cody's other gimmicks and his commitment to everything. Yeah, we will. But so I started watching that and loved the Young Bucks and what they do and the whole of Bullet Club. So that's all great. And we have Seth Rollins representing more that side of the working and the impressive displays of athleticism that Braun Strowman, while he is impressive, he doesn't do that side of it. So they've got two guys reflective of what I think a lot of people want. And they're going with a guy that clearly right now comparatively few people want. But who could have a fantastic place on the roster in several ways. But right now will not get over as a face.
Well, now
it's not rescuable as a face. And I know it's considered old hat to say it, but
I think after WrestleMania, it almost became, fresh is the wrong word, but you know what I mean. It's like, that for me, it didn't just jump the shark at WrestleMania. The shark basically collided into a wall. Yeah. Because it was I would
say
much.
the theory of Roman became a fact, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're 100% right. It's almost like that was it coming to a head, and it was like, oh boy, it's too much. And especially again when it does start to affect the rest of the card, that's when I start getting too annoyed. Because that one decision at WrestleMania to not have Brock Lesnar lose, which has clearly been the plan for a year, it sent Samoa Joe to SmackDown, and I was quite looking forward to my Roman Reigns Samoa Joe Universal title feud. It put Roman Reigns in a feud with Jinder Mahal. It clearly knocked Braun Strowman off what he was meant to do, all because of this weird, I call it controversy, around Roman Reigns. And I didn't mind it for a long time. But yeah, like you're saying now, especially, I totally agree with you on Seth Rollins as well. I really feel like this year, this is the first time in WWE he's kind of found that momentum as a babyface. And because he is a high flyer and does all the stuff that the hardcores love, that is ultimately exactly that they've got that market catered for. So the fact that you have the more mainstream monster, and it's all, like I say, it's all this weird asterisk because you've got this most. Don't get me wrong. If you actually take a step back and look at it critically, Roman Reigns is amazing because
he's great. He's really good, and when he's when he's not reading promos that make me cringe, and he's allowed to just do his own thing, he's fine. But right now, he's kind of unwatchable because he's saying things like, Brock Lesnar's Vince's boy, and it's no, because we know that's bullshit.
Yeah,
we know that's bullshit. You didn't win the Royal Rumble and you're the main event. You didn't have a title match with Samoa Joe and you were the main event, which I didn't end up watching. Well, I do what I do now with a lot of Roman matches. I watch to see him come out so I can, with morbid fascination, listen to the crowd reactions and wonder how the hell he can still do it and come out and just face it and not cringe himself when he has to say that the other guys are the guys who are protected and he's in the Stone Cold position of hates his boss. Because it's so it wasn't obvious with Stone Cold because it wasn't written that way. Here, there's no subtlety to the fact that he is loved by the company and put in the position of everything, and he's the big dog because Michael Cole's got to say that with rapturous euphoria every time he comes out. He is to Roman what Corey Graves is to Alexa Bliss in just the
that's true
worship. It's too obvious. It's too obvious to work. And that's the problem, I think, with Roman Reigns, is he is really good at what he does, but the whole package right now is too obvious to work. And I'll say this, that he was in the position, that he was allowed to be put into the position he was put in at WrestleMania. No performer should be put into that position, I should say, where they're treated that hostile through no real fault of their own, and totally against what the reaction should be for the story, he's put in that position, and that a true gemstone like Braun Strowman, a true, you only get this once in a lifetime, living phenomenon like Braun Strowman, just physical phenomenon that is Braun Strowman. Again, everything Vince has ever wanted. That he is in a tag team match with a 10-year-old child. That's the best they could think of. That they have nothing to do with. For Braun Strowman at WrestleMania is a crime. An actual, not just booking, because I know they want to say they're writers now. If you consider yourself a writer for having Braun Strowman in your lap and not knowing what to do with it, to not be able to pet the Strowman kitty when it's a Strowman kitty. There's only one thing you do with a kitty. You stroke it, you pet it. If you don't know what to do, it's a writing crime. And shame on them. Shame on them as writers. I don't say this is aside from wrestling, as an industry, as a sport, as anything you want to label it. And this is not about booking and everything traditionally involved with that. As writers of a TV show, what they desperately want to be, that is shameful, criminal, and they should go in writer's jail. It's spelt G-A-O-L, proper medieval jail, so you know it's bad, full of rats.
Put them in the stocks.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree with you because, and I was thinking about this the other day, like, it's all well and good to say, oh, the landscape's changed and this and that. Some things don't change in wrestling. And if we imagine when Stone Cold, I'm not saying that Braun Strowman's the next Stone Cold Steve Austin. I made an analogy like this once and it was, the backfire was not worth it. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is he's the guy, like we've said, he's the guy with the momentum. So you can say there's a similarity there. Stone Cold Steve Austin, when he was gathering momentum, wouldn't have been put in that situation at WrestleMania. It just wouldn't have happened.
It's embarrassing. How are they not embarrassed that their top guy is being treated like this?
Well, I think it's because they're making money, and they think, well, we're making money, so we must be doing something right because we're making loads of money.
And that's what it all comes back to. But do you know what else was making lots of money while it was being embarrassing on television?
Go on, I know what you're going to say, but you're going to say it.
WCW.
Exactly.
When the business is hot, you can do no wrong. When the business is cold, you can do no right. That phrase is that's the arc phrase in the death of WCW. And whether you want to say everything in that book is real or not, or some of the accounts, because the wrestling industry is full of people with their own take on what happened. There are a lot of undeniable things and facts and figures, actual backed up statistics in that book. And you look at some of the stuff they were doing when they were at their hottest. People were watching out of morbid curiosity. And when the curiosity wore off, they stopped. And, we see this with what I said about the lack of future proof. And again, in the other industry I examine for a living, if you keep a stagnant audience and your aim is to make more money from the same audience or a dwindling audience, which is worse, you can only squeeze so much. You can squeeze coal into a diamond, but once it's a diamond, you'll cut your fingers.
That's brilliant.
That is that's business. You can make as much money as you like right now. But if you've alienated your audience, if you've burnt the goodwill, you are toast in the future.
Yeah, I also, this is a bit of a strange tangent, but it all ties in my head. I blame John Cena for a lot of this. And when I say John Cena, I don't mean the man John Cena. I mean the way John Cena was treated. Because his sort of yay boo reaction, I loved it. I got a kick out of every week because it was huge. And anyone that gets that type of reaction, I will emote for that. You'll get emotions out of me. Yeah. However, because we're now getting the same thing with Roman Reigns, again, it's kind of like Braun Strowman, the big dude coming back to fruition. Now I'm just like, can't we just cheer the good guys again? And boo the bad guys again. I'm really sick of this main guy of the company that I have to hate. I don't want to hate him. I want you to find out a way to make me like him in the same way they're like AJ Styles or Daniel Bryan, which we also have to talk about.
Yeah.
I like that. I like wanting someone to win. And I never had that with John Cena because, again, he was a science experiment almost. And that was great because it was different. It's not different anymore. It's not new. We've done it. And I can't believe we're doing it again. It just seems so counterproductive. I want to be able to tune in to Raw and SmackDown. It's why, in many ways, I prefer SmackDown at the moment because I do want to cheer AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan, and it makes me happy. Yeah. Whereas, Seth Rollins, absolutely that works. And there are some other guys, but I'm talking about the top, your Hogans, your Austins, your Rocks, that you get excited about winning the big match at Mania or the World Championship because you're completely invested in what they're doing. And yet, here we are in 2018, and I think the John Cena nonsense started about 2006. So 12 years of this, we're going to almost, I don't like to say take over the show, because you do whatever you want if you go to an event, but that's what it is. It's taking over the show, and honestly, it's really starting to wear thin.
I think people do want traditional heels and faces again.
I do.
Just from observing crowds, because a common excuse, and I think, again, they cling to this. I think the reality era, is that what they're calling it now? The reality era
so, yeah.
Feels almost like wallpaper over a crack. It's like they can't get people to, as some podcaster called it, get the crowd to cooperate with them, which I don't like that, but I had to bring it up at some point that I heard someone use that phrase as if...
Cooperate.
As if the audience is a cowed part of the show. Like they've been beaten into submission. And honestly, I think they believe that. And are only now just seeing a rebellion among the peasantry in their view. But I think part of that rebellion, and honestly, I think part of cheering for heels and booing faces, or cheering for them both, the whole warring chant thing, is a reflection of if they're not as invested in the story. Because you would just cheer for someone based on whether you like them as a performer if you're not that into the story and you're not that invested in a heel. There are exceptions. Obviously, NXT being very work focused, you'll get people cheering for a lot of people. But then again, they'll even lean into it. The Velveteen Dream is pure, between status. He'll pick on the faces, but he'll play to the crowd, and it works.
That's true.
But then you look at Tommaso Ciampa. A man so booed, he doesn't need music. The best entrance I've seen in a long time.
And I love glitz and glamour,
but wow.
He's the best.
He is evil. People chanting, "You're the devil." He is evil. And another one that I feel one day he'll, end up where they won't know what to do with him and will waste pure gold because he is evil. He looks like a villain from a Jim Henson movie, and I mean that as a compliment because he looks demonic and he leans in the creepy wave like some like gremlin creature who's done something truly evil. That's so good. And people want to... You look at, again, like I've started watching Ring of Honor. People are booing not consistently, but people are booing heels a lot more regularly there.
Yeah, I
and
totally agree.
cheering for faces. Cody Rhodes, or rather Cody, sorry, has to warn people many times not to jump the barricade to get to him. That's amazing.
Yeah. No,
That's amazing. People in YouTube comments arguing over his promo about Kenny Omega as if they believe everything he's saying. And some of them maybe do, because they actually know how to blur the lines properly to convince you of the story, rather than just say, all but say this is a shoot. Look what we are doing at the camera. I am Roman Reigns and John Cena, if people couldn't tell. He can just throw something in like Kenny Omega's a reject from WWE Developmental, and the audience almost goes quiet with just, ooh, because that's part of the character of Kenny Omega. Like, they blend the work into the story in a way that you just get invested in the characters more. And it's not just this horrible, jarring break from reality. And they get people invested in the characters and stories as a consequence. They lean into it on Twitter. Cody trolling Bullet Club fans on Twitter is so good. And like you say, Ciampa is so good on Twitter. They're working it from all the angles. Kayfabe isn't necessarily dead. It's just we all know what it is now. And people want to believe in it still. And the same way, people will watch a soap opera or, EastEnders or something. And they know they're actors, not very good ones even. But they all still watch the storylines because they want to see people miserable.
Exactly.
And in wrestling, they want to see the good guys and the bad guys fight. And I like villainous characters, so I might not, quote-unquote, cooperate and cheer for villains just because I've always liked villainous characters. They get the best Disney songs. So that's... I might not, but I will still do it because I'm buying into the stories and I like the characters. I'll cheer for Cody because I love him as a villainous character. The American Psycho type thing, his whole American Nightmare thing, I love it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And Ring of Honor and NXT does it well too. But yes. I look at it like New Japan is a big one for me because I'll admit that the idea of this did first come from Reddit. In case someone goes, "You stole that?" Yes, it did. This was inspired from a comment on Reddit. But in many ways, Okada is being booked in exactly the same way as Roman Reigns. He always wins. He's the top guy in the company, except he has nothing but universal praise. And you could argue that Okada's a better wrestler than Roman Reigns, but I don't think that's it. I just think it's because, at the point where the fans are making up their minds and, you have a million different variables of if they're going to like you or hate you. And yes, Roman Reigns had to put up with all the stuff to do with Daniel Bryan. However, it all counts, whether it's real life or the fictional world of wrestling. And this is tying into what you said about kayfabe. People don't, if people wanted to boo Roman Reigns, you can easily embrace, the insane side of wrestling by going, okay, that's what they want. They've already got a reason. Let's play on that. Let's push it. And then, hey, look, we're back in the crazy world of fictional wrestling because, we've understood the story and we've steered our direction there. That's why Okada gets cheered because he hasn't really done anything, or he didn't fall into the same pit that Roman Reigns that did fall into. And I know I'm focusing on Roman, but this is just more of a general point. About all of it. And it is that thing about embracing whatever because you never know. Every wrestler is like is a different journey, a different adventure, to sound really hippie trippy and over the top. And it really is about embracing where they're going to go. I mentioned Steve Austin earlier. Steve Austin came in and by his own admission was meant to be a mechanic, a guy that was there to make other people look good and put them over. But then lightning struck and everybody then in 96, 97, 98 was like, we better do something with this. And they did. And Roman is actually in the same position. It's just, for whatever reason, it's like we're just going to be really, really, really stubborn. And I get that at the house shows he gets cheered and he sells a lot of merchandise. He's an absolute important contributor, to that company. However, the TV audience is completely different to the house show audience because the TV audience has basically cult mentality. When you see Roman Reigns get booing on TV and then you go to a show and everyone else is doing it, it's like, well, I better join the mob. I better jump in with the masses, and it's too late. And also, let's not forget that this was Roman Reigns' fourth appearance in a row of headlining WrestleMania. That's Hulk Hogan levels of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not good. I just, it's too long.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of people will, when they criticize Roman, will say that it's only because he shoved down our throats that we don't like him. But I think history has demonstrated that you can shove a babyface down people's throats as much as you want. You can fill them up with another wrestler if you want. If they want them. If they want the wrestler. Hulk Hogan, people wanted.
Yeah.
He never lost. In when he did, he was very protected.
Yep.
He was back-to-back WrestleMania main eventing. Goldberg, the streak. Asuka, the streak. People didn't mind that. They never mind that. They never mind someone being front and centre, not losing. They want to see the person win and win and win and succeed and be Okada or Goldberg or the person who I just mentioned, Hulk Hogan, and somehow completely forgot his names for a moment. You can do that with them if they're the guy, or girl. I mean, Ronda Rousey might be the linchpin now. We don't know. Once we see her in action more, I mean, she's already got the big mainstream thing. It might be a woman. It might be, if not the guy, the gal. You don't know right now.
She's got more chance than anyone, given her star away from the WWE.
Yes, yeah, very much so. If they want that, if they want to expand their audience properly and not try and squeeze blood from an ever anemic stone, they're going to be in trouble if they keep trying to push this and just tailor to the smaller live crowd that likes Roman. Because I think I forget because I listen to a lot of stuff, It's gotten to the point where I watch a Roman thing and I don't want to watch the next episode of WWE or Raw so much as I then think, oh, I got to hear what Raven thinks about this. And I don't think that's a kind of way you want your audience to get, where they just then listen to other people bashing the thing or examining it bewildered. And then you just stop watching the show because you're like, well, I could just listen to other people be confused and not be confused myself.
Well, that's the thing I'm finding more and more amazing. I honestly, because I obviously do the ups and downs thing for What Culture. The amount of people that now say to me, I don't watch Raw. And it's not huge or anything. I'm talking dozens, not thousands, but still.
You're among them, by the way. It'll be, right, I'll go on to What Culture, see what Simon Miller has to say about this. So I watch the ups and downs for WrestleMania and Greatest Royal Rumble and Backlash so that I could, obviously because I enjoy your videos, but also because I'm like, it's another opinion on Roman Reigns. And I've got to hear them because I'm so darkly fascinated. I keep using that word, I know, but that's the word.
But you're right, and but you're 100% right. I get like that. I want to know what Stone Cold thinks about it, or Raven, or Chris Jericho, or I mean, there's so many wrestling podcasts, but I seek them out because again, Roman Reigns is a science experiment. It's like, look at this crazy world we've entered, where the guy that's meant to be the biggest guy in the company and cheered and beloved is hated. And yet we just ignore all of that. That's not making any sense.
We're in the world of reaction videos as well. We're in the world of YouTube and people loving over-the-top stuff, which again is another point for Roman. But again, in the world of reaction videos, I'm looking up a compilation of reactions to Roman Reigns coming out number 30 in the Royal Rumble, just to see people hyped and then deflated. And there are compilations of that, because that's a big audience for that. Yeah. For watching other people be continually just utterly confused by WWE. And you don't want your show to be confusing to people. Much less the Roman fans who might turn up and be go to a show and be like, why is everyone else booing this man?
Yeah.
I'm so confused. WrestleMania shouldn't have a confusing main event. You should clearly know who is who.
Yeah.
Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? If you want to be less traditional, why does he dislike him? What's going on here? Why are people chanting and going home and yelling, this is boring, and booing Brock Lesnar for winning, even though they were cheering him because he was anyone but Roman? It's a bizarre story. WWE is bizarre.
How does a new viewer get in as well? Like, if you're a new viewer, I mean, it's different for you because obviously you had, you've got experience with it from before. But
plus, Bobby Lashley's back, so everything's like it was.
It's true. We've just reset. We have just reset to where we were 10 years ago.
All over again.
Imagine you'd never watched any of that, and you start watching today. The amount of stuff you have to learn. It's like watching, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's like watching the latest Avengers movie. If you've seen that movie, it's like, man, I need a lot of information before sitting down with this film just to get through it. And it's the same. If you're not invested in Squared Circle or the internet wrestling community or indie wrestling or whatever, and you sit down even to watch one episode of Raw and you're being told Roman Reigns, you're being sold this idea of Roman Reigns, this guy, Braun Strowman's this guy, Seth Rollins, this guy, The Miz is this guy, and yet everything, the reaction is different. You're going to be baffled, and I dare would say, you go, you know what, I don't want to watch this. For starters, there's 7 hours of television I've got to watch each week. Also, I don't understand what the hell is going on. I'm just gonna tap out. And hey, look,
why did Backlash last that long? Why did Backlash last that long?
I don't know. I
checked out before the main event because Samoa Joe was beating the hell out of Roman Reigns, and I think he just cinched in the sleeper hold. And I immediately just thought, right, he's going to beat up Roman for the whole match. Superman punch spear, he wins. I don't need to see this. I'm going to bed. And I woke up in the morning, and it was pretty much that. From like looking at the report in the morning, so I know how the matches are all going to go now. But you could say the same about Hulk Hogan, except people wanted to see it. He had the catchphrases people wanted to see. He had the match ending people wanted to see. They want to see the leg drop. They want to see the people's elbow. They don't want to see... I mean, they're not doing him no favours with the finishers. Because I honestly feel like the spear, as much as it's always been used as a face move, unless you're someone like Goldberg... It's more of a heel move, I feel. I think Edge made it work as a finisher because it's almost like a sneaky move. But it doesn't look so good on Roman. He doesn't have a move that gets the crowd pumped up. And he doesn't need to be super fancy. Braun Strowman makes the running power slam look good.
Yeah.
Because he makes it look good. Because he's a huge, big dude. And it's sold like the worst thing in the world. But a spear is just...
You're right, and also it's been done better by Goldberg.
Yes.
Last year.
Charlotte Flair does a better one, and I don't mean that to be insulting to, a girl does a better one. I just mean Charlotte Flair does a better one, and it's used by her as a legit finisher when she doesn't use the figure eight, which is just beautiful. While we're on WrestleMania, the one-armed figure eight was there. It looked like a photo op, like a lot of WWE stuff does. But it was one I didn't mind. Like, as I was looking at it, I was like, well, they're all taking photos of that. But I was like, that deserves photos taken.
Yeah.
That's not just pointing to a sign.
I love that match, to be honest. I had sort of some reservations about the ending just because I don't feel like Oscar needed to lose. But that's nothing. That's something that's there to be argued about, I believe.
It made me go, holy shit.
Yeah, me too. And
I didn't think... Like the Nicholas winning the tag titles thing, I didn't think in the morning, like, oh, well, that's going to damage her. I was worried that they'd then find nothing to do with her and be confused about what to do with someone who is a major talent and worth and easy to write for. But they did that. That happened. Now they don't know what to do with... Why do they not know what to do with people who are very talented?
But I love that you're here, Jim. I love that you're here. You've arrived. You're at the wrestling party.
It's like I always say, I don't know a great deal about wrestling. I really don't. But I know entertainment. It's been my work for a decade now.
Yeah, and you've been very successful at it too.
I like to consider myself at least, a cult success at what I do. I'm doing well. And I've been able to grow my audience at a comfortable rate. I think I know and my business has been critiquing entertainment, different industry, but still entertainment. And I said critiquing very jovially, I thought. But I know entertainment, and I know writing, and this is bad. If you don't know, you don't have to know wrestling to know who's charismatic, who has you just have to have, like, eyesight, and you don't even need that. actually. You just need to hear the crowd, or you just need to see you need a sense to be able to pick up what the crowd is doing. Just a little bit of sense to know what to do with some of these performers. And where the algorithm is there, the sorting algorithm of these performers. Clearly Roman is in the wrong position, because you shouldn't ever have to put a performer through that experience. He shouldn't have to deliver promos he clearly can't believe, no one can believe, because of all the evidence on the show to the contrary. Again, if we want to look at this as a television show they're trying to produce, the audience not giving the right reactions, or not, again, complying with orders from the writers, is their fault. It's the writers' fault. They complain, people say, oh, well, the people who bring beach balls are being disrespectful. I say they wouldn't be bringing out the beach balls if they were being respected as an audience and being given the entertainment that they want. Instead, we get people bored, booing the hero of the TV show, and that makes a very confusing TV show that is telling us that this guy is despicable and yet heroic. And you can write that character, but no one is talented enough, given the evidence I've looked at, in the WWE creative to do any of that.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. And like I said, I can always enjoy wrestling week to week, even with all of that. But it's like you said, I'm enjoying it within the context of what it's being presented, and not necessarily what's going to happen, 4, 6, 8, 10 years down the line.
It's confusing. That's the problem.
It is.
Like a bad B-movie, but without the laughter, sometimes. Elias makes me laugh a lot. He's got a career in pantomime.
Oh, he's won me over.
He'll be a great King Rat or something in Panto one time.
He really would. He's just... I think everything that happened at WrestleMania with him when the lights went out and it was Elias, I jumped out my chair.
Yeah.
it was just so... That was it.
Here's another one. Another one they don't seem to know what to do with. When
he does
he's
nothing,
so good
right?
at what he does.
He floats around. Again, he just floats around. Like, at one point, I thought he was feuding with Strowman, then he didn't. Then I thought he was feuding with Lashley, then he didn't. Now he's gone into a story with Bobby Roode, but they've got one apiece, and now apparently Bobby Roode doesn't care anymore. It's constant. Yeah. I don't get it. I don't understand what we're trying to catch up with here.
Yeah, like, your show shouldn't be confusing. And I get it. You're doing live TV, and it's a wrestling show, and the crowd is unpredictable. Things aren't going to work out. But again, you look at the median. What's the average here? On average, I watch Ring of Honor and I am not confused. I know who is what the motivation is, who the crowd has sided with. It is a special event almost. Well, that puts a bit too much on it, but it's a bit of a special feeling when there is a split reaction chant in something like Ring of Honor. Yeah. Or New Japan, or where the characters are being taken more seriously by, honestly, more creative people than people who call themselves creative instead of bookers. The people with the loftier goals are not showing they deserve to be in a position of writing primetime television, because, honestly, a lot of this stuff is just cringe TV.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Because I think sometimes the way I look at it is, it's okay for people like you and I who understand pro wrestling, but again, if you don't, I don't see where the door is anymore.
Yeah, that's honestly, it's no surprise why ratings are down.
Yeah, it's I'd love, in a way, I would love to somehow be able to extract all the wrestling knowledge from my brain and sit down with an episode of Raw. For starters, you've got to get through 3 hours, which is nothing. I mean, there's nothing that can be 3 hours of entertainment.
Again, there's a reason I watch the Hulu edits. Even though they cut out the ultimate deletion, because I guess they were embarrassed before they realised exactly how popular it would be. I end up watching those more than anything else, because I'm not sitting through 3 hours on top of everything else. I got things to do.
You're a busy man.
Yeah, I'm busy. I'm too busy for something that I genuinely enjoy watching a lot of.
That's the other thing as well. Like, and I love pro wrestling. I am part of the problem, because they can pretty much do whatever they want, and I'll watch it week to week because I work in it, but also because I do love it. Even when I don't like something, I like talking to to people like yourself about it. I get a kick out of it. But We are not that's a hardcore fan. We all know about hardcore fans, and it's the casual fan you always want to try and win over. Because again, I'm in. You've got me. I mean, I'm not much of a merchandise buyer, but I know a lot of people within that remit are. So you're going to make your money. But it is a strange time, and like I said, we are in that lull post WrestleMania at the moment. As you mentioned, Backlash was mediocre.
Yeah, and here's
best.
the thing: we say lull. Backlash has often been one of my favourite events.
I agree.
There have been some great backlashes because the concept is good. Like, you've had the big season finale with the triumphs of WrestleMania, and then it's time for the fallout and the kickoff of a new year of stuff, going by the WWE calendar. But yeah, like this and last year but then last year they kind of, the concept was gone. But this year it was sort of bringing the idea back because it was this dual show thing. I won't say brand, this dual show thing, and it's more part of that cringe TV brand supremacy.
It's true, yeah.
What you want about you're the same company, grow up. But two shows I can at least believe have competitive writing teams because they kind of do in real life, or at least used to. I'm not sure what the situation is. I know they've got different heads for the shows, but you can at least believe that. But brand super sod off. But I forget where I was going with any of that. I had to make a different point, but
I was just enjoying it, to be honest, man. I was just enjoying the rant. I can't know what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? I've lost the first time ever. I've lost our train of thought of what we were talking about. Basically, that WWE's gone nuts. I think that's basically the idea that we were saying.
Yeah, it's confusing, and they had a big mainstream audience back when it resonated with that, and part of it is, of course, the spread of media. People aren't watching TV so much anymore, but again, that speaks to the idea that WWE trying to make a lot more money from a dwindling medium is not going to work out. I think if they were doing better, WWE Network would do better. They probably get a lot of sign-ups after WrestleMania, but then and probably make a bit of money like any subscription off people who just forget to cancel. But with the kind of TV they put out, and with so much of it everywhere, people probably do see it here and there and then think, oh, I got to cancel this because this is weird that I'm looking at here and confusing and baffling. And probably WrestleMania as well. Wasn't a great commercial for the WWE Network to say, here's our top guy. Everybody hates looking at him.
I mean, to go off the air with basically a crowd not even giving a match a chance and just ignoring it, which they did again at Backlash. I know they walked out of Backlash, but they still took over that main event at Backlash. I mean, at WrestleMania. To have that twice in a row. I've been watching wrestling a long time. I can't, apart from sort of Goldberg and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 20, I can't think of many matches where I've sat there and gone, no matter what they're doing in the ring, I can't enjoy it because this crowd is so anti what's going on. It has just sapped away any atmosphere or, any...
And I don't blame the crowd. I do not blame the crowd.
No, the crowd can do whatever they want. Yeah, no, it's the WWE's job to get them invested. That's their job.
That's it. Every chant of this is boring. Every beach ball bounce is another mark of shame on the writing team for not keeping them hooked, because they'll go elsewhere. They'll find a beach ball more entertaining.
Yeah, they are, and I understand. I understand why somebody like Cesaro, I think especially he doesn't like it. He's like, this is disrespectful. I think Jericho said they're right. It is disrespectful. However, they haven't spent that money to cut. Well, some people always spend money to be jackasses, but by and large, they haven't spent that money to be jackasses. They just get there and they got 7.5 hours into a show and they said, I do not want to see Roman Reigns. That's all it was. That's all it was.
It was an audience protesting the only way an audience can.
Yeah.
If they're there, then they'll react by chanting "beat the traffic," which a lot of people did because they didn't want to. They didn't want to hang around at 11:30. That's almost on a Sunday. There's work in the morning.
I know.
I feel bad because you said you liked having me on because I often brought a more positive spin, and now I'm just sounding like any old smark on the internet, which I can say now because I'm in the business. I'm allowed to say that now. I can use terms.
We're gonna get there.
Selling. I could just say that out loud now. Bump. Anyway. Yeah, so I feel bad that I'm now just being a cynical misery again. At some point, we'll just have to do one where I'm just like, let's talk about people I like in Ring of Honor. Let's just talk about Dalton Castle for an hour. But it really is where I'm at. Not as someone who thinks he can do better in the wrestling industry, but simply as someone who likes good entertainment. Just
You're
as
a
someone
fan.
who wants to watch a TV show and not just have my jaw on the floor at the dreadful... Not watching it like I watch The Room, almost, but with fewer laughs.
I mean, that is a damning review right there.
Honestly,
watching The Room, but with fewer laughs, which is like all The Room has.
Yeah, really, at some times. If it wasn't for the wrestling, which they don't even want to acknowledge because they're a sports entertainment company, you've only got the sports.
Oh, I love it. I love that we're here. I love it. Wrestling is what a wonderful beast wrestling is. it drags you in, you somehow get obsessed with it, and then it pisses you off. It's the same with everybody.
When I was a teenager, me and my friend talked about this. I forget which. It was during the Invasion angle, but it wasn't Invasion. It was one of the ones after. And we were just so upset at the main event of it because it was just it was the one where all I remember was Chris Jericho called Paul Heyman a big white Shrek. That's all I remember. But we got to remember that Nia Jax is being bullied at the same time. The main babyface is calling Paul Heyman a walrus. We got to remember those two disparate pieces of these two conflicting pieces of information.
That's so true.
Yeah,
it's so true. They're awful with that stuff. They really are.
That's
bad.
the whole part of again why WWE is so confusing, because it's constantly giving us two messages from that all the way up to here's the big dog that everyone is sick of and no one wants to see. It mixed messages all the time. There's no consistency. And again, you watch Ring of Honor, you watch New Japan, they ain't bouncing beach balls. They're not chanting beat the traffic. They're watching and cheering and booing and getting involved, actually involved, not fighting the product. They're going with the flow. You rarely see this disrespect from people watching these shows because they have something to respect.
Yeah, there you go. You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. And again, this isn't... I realise it sucks for the performers and they will feel personally disrespected. But again, this goes to the creative team. It's a mark on them that they would put a performer in that really, honestly bad position.
Yeah.
Unhealthy position. It can't be good for Roman's mindset, for anyone's mindset.
No, I don't know how he puts up with it.
Yeah, honestly, I feel terrible.
I after WrestleMania, I really did. I was like, that can't... I'm sure he's got thick skin, and I'm sure he's probably got a bit of a chip on his shoulder as well. I certainly would do. But I was also like, it's got to wear you down. It's just got to wear you down. I mean,
I went through this in my job. Only when I realised that the place I'd started working for, because I brought my show to a new place, and people didn't like me, so I thought, sod it, lean into it, because it wasn't good for my mindset. Yeah. So I was like, lean into it, they're probably going to cancel me off anyway, just essentially turn heel. I just became smug and arrogant as a character, and they loved it, and it got over in that industry, and we've seen it get over in this industry. Of course, everyone brings up Rocky Maivia versus The Rock. Everyone brings it up, but they bring it up because it's always so pertinent. They wouldn't bring it up so much if it hadn't happened and we hadn't all witnessed it.
Yeah, which is why it's bizarre. It happened in their own company. I don't understand why you just wouldn't go, hey, we can do that again. And maybe if we do that again, we'll have a new version of The Rock.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that would happen.
Arrogance. Vince in his arrogance, I could see rejecting it if it was a WCW idea once.
Oh, absolutely,
and they were the only ones who succeeded with it. But Vince in his arrogance should be thinking that he could do that again. That he had these successes. I don't know. When did he become so frightened as well? That's another thing. I realised that they are playing nice with TV networks. I'm not talking about PG stuff. I'm talking about creative stuff. I guess it was just when he had no one else to beat, so there were no desperation moves. Competition always breeds creativity, but yeah, he's playing it so safe now. He looks so scared.
I think WCW dying really was, and don't get me wrong, I always have to point out, I still like wrestling, but it was the worst thing that ever happened to the wrestling business, because there's never been another sort of property competition. TNA Impact never really got there. I will say, and we can transition into this just as we're here, the All In show that Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks announced yesterday, well, that put on sale yesterday. Their tickets sold out within 35 minutes. And as you mentioned, Cody Rhodes is your favourite wrestler, maybe ever.
Maybe. Certainly of working right now, but maybe ever.
And he could be responsible for this sort of... And look, indie wrestling was booming anyway, as you and I both know, Jim, as we somehow snuck our way into it. But, he has now, I think I read this, and I go, facts are spurious at best, but seemingly the first show in around 20 years in America... not by the WWE, that has, now sold out a building that has 10,000 people sold. Mm-hmm. And I know there's people going, it's probably, second-hand market, StubHub tickets. Well, even it is, they still sold 10,000 tickets, so it's irrelevant. The tickets still sold.
And let's face it, WWE fudges as many numbers as it can. There's a reason that big screen hides a large section of chairs.
Exactly. But I mean, what do you, as a man, obviously, you invested in Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor's got you, New Japan's got you, Cody Rhodes has got you, who right now you could argue is the poster boy for indie wrestling. He's doing so well. I mean, where do you see all of that stuff going? I mean, it's all in show in September, I believe it is. December the 10th or something like that. Is obviously going to be huge. But, has that, are you sucked into, obviously you're certainly getting sucked in, but do you feel like you could even venture off in that direction and be like, I watch WWE, but I'm actually more interested in what's going on over here?
It's honestly getting that way. Like, I'm more keen to catch Ring of Honor Monday nights on the Fight TV app. Like, it's just an hour, and I think they're behind even. But right now, until I get like Roku or whatever, like to get the Honor Club kicked up, that's what I'm doing. But I'm more looking forward to that now than I do Raw, certainly. And as the death of WCW may have been the worst thing to have happened in the industry for a long while. In terms of the business, I'm not going to talk about... I don't mean personal as people and what they've done. I mean in terms of, WWE as a business long term. May have been very damaging. That was very long roundabout and too many caveats. But basically what I'm getting at is that the rise and especially the alliance between New Japan and Ring of Honor may be the best thing, or may become the best thing, because they're getting powerful, it feels. New Japan has obviously become really big, and the Bullet Club alone are bringing eyes over. Once they got Cody in, that got me in, and obviously Kenny Omega got a ton of people in, and the Young Bucks have become a merchandise machine and brought the rest of them with them. That Hot Topic deal is just amazing, the success they've had. It's
insane. And even Jericho, when he comes in, just makes these new t-shirts and they just blow up in Hot Topic. I know he's Chris Jericho, but still, it's madness.
They're reflecting, I think, at least a counterculture in some ways that is making money, and that could propel a lot of things. A rising tide raises all the ships. And right now, the Bullet Club is one heck of a tide.
Absolutely.
That's at least looking at it right now. Obviously, the every business changes, and it could all fall apart. But right now, they look to be only on the rise, and it's at the point where the loftiest career goal I have as someone working in the industry is to just have a little stint in Ring of Honor. That's the pinnacle. I got no intention, belief, desire. Even it sounds arrogant to say, I wouldn't work for WWE, because why would they ever want me to be on television? But that even if it were realistic, it wouldn't be the goal. Ring of Honor, New Japan. That's the hype, because the indie business is the one that I've started to really love, and the one where the passion is so readily felt, and the audience is so much more into what's going on, so it feels like wrestling.
Yeah, I will say this, and I agree with you 100%, but I will play devil's advocate and say I'm glad the indie scene, New Japan, Ring of Honor is doing so well, because now wrestling fans can choose. If you really don't like what WWE's doing, you don't have to watch it. However, I am still a WWE fan, and I agree with you. WWE needs to be doing better. But,
that's the thing. It's like, I don't mind WWE being like someone called it the Electronic Arts of wrestling.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if the products they were putting out, I wouldn't mind so much, I guess, if the products they were putting out, again, like NXT, I got all the time in the world for NXT. And that's a WWE thing. And it's still got a lot of WWE spins on it, but it's also creating good television, good telly. Not just good wrestling, good telly as well. Good characters, good stories, things I'm invested in. And that is the problem with WWE. Not that it's its own brand and thing, I'll use brand there, like its own entity that's very different from indie wrestling. That choice is great, but not when it leads to bad telly. Or rather, not so much lead, but just when the telly right now is bad. It could be good, and WWE has these moments still where I'm like, this is great. But fewer and further between. And it seems to me, at least watching, I don't know if the rose-tinted glasses just fell off or if it really has been getting worse, but it feels like it's becoming more and more bemusing and weird and just wrong. There's almost like a Stepford Wives Uncanny Valley thing to the whole thing. It's like, this looks like television, this looks like TV, but it's sort of not, because it's uncomfortable and awkward and strange and a bit embarrassing, and people don't like it. And the commentators have to acknowledge that they don't like it and say that someone's polarizing when they're just largely detested from the sounds of it. And the show is telling us two things at once. And
I hate that, yeah.
It just feels like at least especially over the past few months, it's just been getting worse. Like, the lead up to WrestleMania was, they had a really good Royal Rumble, and then everything, I think, from there just seemed to get a bit, with these flashes of greatness, I should say, like Shinsuke Nakamura as a heel now. Great.
Awesome. So good. I mean, again, I thought their match at WrestleMania was a bit like, yeah, it was okay. But yeah.
That was a bit of a letdown, yeah.
If the plan was to have all this done, I love it. Shinsuke as a heel is, I honestly think now it almost feels like, after a year of waiting, he's arrived in the WWE.
I didn't think you could do a don't speak English thing, and have it work okay, but it's the way Shinsuke is weaponizing it.
Yeah, such a good word.
That's a moment where I'm like, okay, now they're doing compelling TV. And I even like the inconclusive matches. I feel like if Shinsuke doesn't win here, that's bad writing, and that will just destroy Shinsuke as a character and a performer. I feel like now that they've had him lose, then two more matches, the fourth gotta give him a reign. But I liked the two being inconclusive as the escalation between them ramps up and they just get more and more ready to tear each other apart. I want to see them 4 matches in. To say nothing of the constant tag matches that throw random people together on SmackDowns. I want to see a 4th match, and that's, you tend to get tired if you see that many in pay-per-views back to back. But I'm ready for a 4th, and I think those inconclusive matches were good for the story, even if they did leave. But then again, I hate that every match has to end with a standard finisher pinfall or, the occasional submission. I'm a big fan of heels leaving with their belts for the champion's advantage that they keep talking about now, because everything's got to have a sellable label. When did they start calling the kip up? When did they start calling the kip up, Simon?
I don't, because everything has to have a name. Yeah, everything has to have a name. I mean, literally everything. Hell in a Cell's
got to have its own pay-per-view. That is clown shoes.
It was when we started calling everybody the WWE Universe. That's when that's when it got bad.
I wouldn't ever want to work there. I can call a belt and the fans the fans.
But there you go, right? That's when it all starts. You can't call a belt a belt. You can't call it a hospital. You can't. There's so many. I can't remember them all. But that's the problem. And then all of a sudden, everything needs a name and everything needs. It's almost like the audience. No, I'm going to say it. It's true. The audience is stupid. So let's make sure we just lay everything out right down to, oh, look, he did a kip up. Oh, look, you understand you're getting Hell in a Cell because the pay-per-view's called Hell in a Cell.
Tree of Woe as well. They used to just hang from the thing. And, your smart friend would lean in and be like, that's called a Tree of Woe. But now it's like, it's constant.
Yeah,
it happens a lot in NXT, and that's again where I talk about as good as NXT is. You can see the WWE-isms because he calls it so well. Because you just hear the Tree of Woe.
He's just awesome. That Morinari is really good. Like,
yeah,
I wasn't even his biggest fan at first, but he's won me over. He's just great.
Yeah, because he's got a very he's a bit like what was his name, Murray Walker from UK.
He is like Murray Walker.
He's so overbearing.
True. Yeah,
but. His calling of the Ciampa match last week when he just went and he's getting a taste of his own very bad medicine, Percy. They were like out of breath by the end of it because he didn't take one. That was the funniest call I've heard in a long time. He hates Ciampa so much, but then we could talk about how brilliant Ciampa is as a heel all day,
and how good Gargano is as a face. I mean, if that isn't, I understand NXT is aimed at a different market, but I can't believe anyone couldn't watch that and go, I get it. So that's the kind of the buzz and the atmosphere we need to get on the main rosters.
I'm so glad Roderick Strong is a heel now.
His gimmick perfect.
Someone on Twitter, and again, I'm so sorry that I can't remember the name. Someone on Twitter just said that Roderick Strong's gimmick is being Roderick Strong. And that's true of a lot of WWE guys, but there was something especially, it was the constant, I had this life, and now I have a family, and that was it. And it's like, well, a lot of people have a tough growing up in a family, but what is your actual character? And now he's got some edge and attitude. I'm really happy to see Roderick Strong in the Undisputed Era, even if the name still gets me set off because a period of time isn't a name for a group.
Well,
we got a cool little hand signal thing, even if it is a little over the top and look at us with the NWO.
Well, that's what it is, right? That's the main thing. That's the push. Like, we make it like
but
that.
They carry it well. To the point where Kyle O'Reilly, I keep almost saying Kylo Ren, Kyle O'Reilly even is able to get away with the playing the belt like the guitar. I'm okay with it because they've got a lot of charisma, and
that's what it is, and they work so well. The chemistry is ridiculous.
Yeah, honestly, and people love them as they're a bit of a, I say a bit of a thing where the heels are getting the cheers, which I did mark as bad writing, but sometimes there are exceptions, like the NWO where it was cool.
Exactly,
it
transcends all of that.
Yeah, and so they work for that, and they're doing very well, and I'm thrilled for Roderick because it feels like he's got a bit more of a fire lit under him now.
Yeah, the whole group's awesome. I mean, I'd be happy if they all got brought up together, to be honest. I know Adam Cole is the star, so to speak, but I'd love it if they all came up together. I just think they're great. Yeah. That's why I'm glad that Drew McIntyre is up as well. I saw I think it was on Twitter, I saw a clip of him and Dolph at a house show. I think they was on the European tour, which they're on now. And Drew McIntyre was just walking to the back, and I looked at him and went, that's pro wrestler. That's what a pro wrestler looks like.
Yeah.
I really hope that, I don't mind the tag team with Dolph either, but I hope eventually that does its thing. I mean, there's only so much you can do that, but then we give push Drew. Just push him. I love Drew McIntyre. I think he's got all the potential in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I don't place a huge importance on look per se.
Yeah.
I think if you've got a good character and you can make any
that's true.
work.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with that. Yeah.
Some people might say the Miz doesn't have a great look. But he carries himself so well that it works for the way he is.
That's true.
And it works for the way he looks.
You're right. If he was any bigger, it wouldn't work. Yeah. That's so true.
It's like Heyman always said, play your strengths and hide the weaknesses. Your weakness might be that you don't have a traditional look, but if you lean into it some way, it can work. And I was talking about Drew McIntyre. He is one of those ones that I do look at and think, no, he has the look. He has the look and it looks good.
Yeah. I just don't know. There's just something about him. I think maybe because I was such a big fan of him leaving. Like we basically did what Cody Rhodes did before Cody Rhodes. And I'm just such a big fan of sort of, going out there and, making a name for yourself away from the WWE to the point they're like, we gotta get this guy back. I respect it so much.
Yeah,
it's just so cool.
I don't know if attaching him to Ziggler, another very confusing character right now, because his motivations change on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I don't know if he's heel or face.
I still don't satisfactorily know why he abdicated the US title. I still don't. I know I know there was an interview where he gave a vague, spurious reason, but it was vague and spurious.
Which is not what we need.
I wanted the WWE title. Well, A, how did that work out for you? B, you wanted it so bad you moved to a new show with a tag team, it seems. C, keeping the US title for a long time is a great way, within the confines of the universe they've built, a great way to raise your profile, to get more shots at what you actually want.
Yeah. Don't forget, we still don't know, if you cast your mind back to when Kurt Angle was getting text messages threatening to reveal this horrendous secret. And I said, on one of my What Culture videos, I said, I can't believe they're not going to tell us who was sending those text messages. And I was bombarded. Give it time, Simon. It's a year and a half later. I still don't know who was sending those text messages.
Yeah. I would trust certain writers to explain something much later from a subtle hint. George R.R. Martin, these people ain't.
No, that we're never going to find out.
They're not leaving breadcrumbs for a revelation later.
There wasn't even the piece of bread to begin with. It just didn't happen.
The closest they got to the Red Wedding was Triple H drugging Stephanie and taking her to a drive-through chapel.
I still can't believe it.
That's the closest they've gotten to the Red Wedding.
Imagine.
And then Test forgot about it. It was so traumatic.
He never got his payoff. No. Triple H stole his woman, and he never got to win. Never got to have a match, I don't think. Oh my gosh, it's funny.
For him, teaming up with Albert was the best medicine.
Well, yeah. Oh my god.
Confusing.
Oh my gosh. Maybe.
And Dolph Ziggler is just so. Again, another one they don't know what to do with.
But they don't know what to do. That's 100%. They have no idea, do they? They have no clue.
They know what to do with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey, I think. But then.
Apparently she's fighting at Money in the Bank. I'm going to hold off and see what she does, because I love what she did at Mania. Haven't minded what she's been doing on Raw. So at the moment, I'm kind of in this. I want to wait and see, because I actually think she could be really good. But I need to see her more. But we'll see. I mean, the key, and WWE does this a lot, is WWE are very good at getting rid of someone's specialness, I find. Like, Kurt Angle came back, and within a few weeks, I was like, oh, he's just on Raw now. Bobby Lashley came back, and I was like, oh, it's just Bobby Lashley.
It's a product of what they've been doing. Everyone's sanitized, and we talked about this, I think, in the very first time we did a podcast together, was everyone's just a guy.
Yep. Yeah, we did, and that is, and I really hope we don't do that with Ronda Rousey, because she has everything you need built in. She's Ronda Rousey. My mum knows who Ronda Rousey is. She doesn't know what Ronda Rousey does, but she knows the name Ronda Rousey because it's just in the sphere of celebrity, and sometimes it floats around. And so to have that, and I don't think they will, but to looking at the evidence and potentially getting rid of that would be insane. I mean, it really would be ridiculous. So I hope they don't do that, but I will wait till Money in the Bank to see what happens. Because you're right, she could become the woman of the guy. She could become the guy, if we're taking guy as a neutral gender term. She really could. She absolutely could, because she's a proper celebrity. Everyone knows who she is. Before we do start to wrap things up though, Jim, we do have to talk about your latest wrestling exploits and let us know where you're at, how it's going with Pro Wrestling Ego, how Stardust is getting on. What's the latest, man? How are you getting on?
Well, Stardust is doing very well. We're having a laugh. It's been wild. The Stardust the whole thing is working very well, because it's not just stealing a gimmick and trying to pass it off as one's own. Because the gimmick is, I'm a 2-bit YouTuber. Of course I'd steal a gimmick.
Exactly, yeah.
And I've gotten a lot of compliments on it from a lot of people about how that works as a thing, and how the inability or the unwillingness to get into the ring works. And the recent thing, we pulled the trigger recently on unveiling the Ursa Major, because we were getting into a bit of a feud with Stardust and Shaky McMullen, but then Shaky McMullen was attacked and jumped and brainwashed, and is now the Ursa Major, Stardust's chosen one, and that resulted in a match, because the Ursa Major, quite rightly in my opinion, turned on former friends for refusing a very generous offer to join the Stardust re-education program. And Adam Priest and Orion Taylor challenged us to a tag team match, and on May 19th, this Saturday, Stardust and the Ursa Major will face off against Orion Taylor and Adam Priest.
Amazing.
That'll be at Path to Pride. That's the 5th annual Path to Pride at the Jackson Hideaway. Going to have a really good fatal 4-way for the new look federated title belt, which I snuck a look at it, and it's gorgeous in real life. With O'Shea Edwards, Ray Fury, Monty Warbucks, and bloody hell, they're gonna kill me. JD Jenkins. He's gonna be angry if I forgot his name. Then again, he should be mad that Stardust punched him in the bollocks that one time.
I think, he probably is. He probably is, yeah.
Probably a bit more sore about that. So that'll be a big fatal 4-way. That's going to be good. Going to have Jeff Cobb's going to be there. That's going to be exciting. Good show, I think.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's me. A little bit annoyed that I was told I could machine wash the Stardust outfit. And now some of the silver's a bit pink, but we're getting another one made up. It won't be ready for the show, but for future use.
I almost found it out the hard way.
By then. Yeah, it's not good.
I was told never, ever, actually told this by wrestlers, never, ever, machine wash your gear, hand wash only. So I was given a heads up with that. So
you see, this gear isn't even proper wrestling gear. Like I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing Saturday in it. I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing Saturday. Full stop. But yeah, I was told machine washable, fully safe, because it was only ever intended for costuming.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not gonna make that mistake again. But yeah, that's been me anyway. That's my foray. I've basically got a good. A management gig as long as I want it, so I'm happy with that.
It makes me so
then
happy,
there's
man.
You.
There is.
Then
me.
there's you actually doing the real legwork. I say that wrestlers skip leg day, but going out there and actually flexing and slamming and telling us here's why.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the whole thing is. I never stumble over my words until I start talking about being a professional wrestler, and then I'm like, I don't know what to say. But no, I mean, indeed, it's crazy. I mean, when was that? April the 28th. It's like a couple of weeks ago now. And then we're doing it all again as we're recording this 2 weeks. 2 weeks today on May 28th in Sheffield, at the Plug in Sheffield. Yeah, where I'm actually going to have a tag team match. Which is nuts. I mean, just for as we'll reveal the curtain a little bit here. But obviously, we started with a Raw Rumble, and then we segue into a tag team match, and then yes, I will be having a singles match next month. If people are following the story, they know who it is, but I'll keep it quiet for now, just for fun. But like you say, man, like we were chatting about, I just think it's wonderful that not only have both of us sort of started doing this around the same time, but just the fact that we even had the impetus to do it in the first place, man, I think is what I'm most proud about. And that's why, I mean, I loved it anyway when you told me you were going to do it, but I doubly love it now, but just because it's, I don't know, it feels like a little fraternity. The video game dudes that probably shouldn't be doing this, but are doing it anyway because fuck life, let's do it. It's fun.
Yeah, if you get a window like this, you take it.
Exactly.
Honestly.
And I think it's awesome. And as we have chatted about, and I wanted to mention this too, and Jim and I will have a proper chat about this. The dream is to get Jim and some of his pro wrestling ego guys over to the UK to work some UK shows. And the best way to do that is to make a lot of noise about it. So, if you do know wrestling promoters and whatnot, I'm talking to the audience here, by the way, not Jim. That's like the audience.
Yeah, I would love to come over with some of the guys.
Yeah, go if you know anyone in your area, tell them about it, because these guys are good. Like, and if you don't,
I wouldn't be speaking them up if I was embarrassed to share a show with them. But they're amazing.
But also, if anyone happens to be listening that doesn't know Jim Sterling, which I would find bonkers, I can't believe it would be the case given the crossover. But you are, and I don't want to blow smoke up your ass, but it's true. You are a very good entertainer and beyond suited for the world of pro wrestling, and could easily come over here and light up any promotion. So it's just a win-win all round. So, if anyone listening to this, I know there are some wrestlers and promoters do listen to this. So, get in touch or, just let yourself known on Twitter or whatever. Jim, you're at Jim Sterling, right? I always say that, but yes, you are. You are just
at Jim Sterling, yeah. I don't check my Twitter mentions a lot just because I get bombarded with a lot of stuff. But certainly put out the word on social media. At Pro Wrestling Ego is your better bet. Because
that's a good idea.
they'll benefit more just because, any indie wrestling company benefits from exposure Certainly a lot more than someone overexposed like me and is doing way too much. At Pro Wrestling Ego, that's all one word. And make that buzz and everything, because like I say, they are very talented, as anyone who's seen the videos that I promote of their work.
And also, on a selfish level, if we could ever somehow be involved in the same wrestling promotion.
Oh,
I mean,
I practice promos all the time. You think I ain't practiced one on you? I practice one for everyone. Everyone. I got the right thing to say about anybody. I've been practicing the perfect mocking head slap and clapping and...
I like it, man. That makes me happy. And let's face it, we've already cut promos each other in the past in different characters too. This isn't our first go around.
Not really.
No. Oh man, how far we've come, Jim. How far we've come.
It feels good.
It does feel good. Wrestling it's a drug, man. We were talking about that off air. Wrestling is a drug, and it sounds cheesy and a bit cliche, but it's true. Once you step your toe in, it's like, yeah, I think I want to do this more. Like I think this makes sense, which is mad. It's worth all the pain, all the bumps, all the bruises. Well, good luck at the weekend, Jim. I mean, if you do get into any physicality, definitely let us know how that goes on, because I'll be intrigued to say the least.
Stardust isn't too worried. He thinks the Earth has got a lot of it, but he also says he's a very skilled wrestler, and he's so skilled that when you see him, you might not even be able to comprehend just how good he is.
Well, I'm sold. I'm ready. I genuinely can't wait for this. I genuinely can't wait. I'm sure Jim will keep everyone up to date on his Twitter at Jim Sterling. Make sure you follow him on YouTube too. Just search for Jim Sterling. I mean, surely, you'd be there. Of course you would be there. What am I even talking about? And also you can support Jim on Patreon. Is it just patreon.com/Jim Sterling? I assume so.
Yeah. I think so. Should be.
I mean, that's people to throw like me, people throw things after their names nowadays. But you can also support this podcast on Patreon as well at patreon.com/Simon316. Given everything that's happened now, putting that 316 at the end of my name is one of the worst ideas I've ever had in my entire life. But we're here now, so there's no going back. I can't change it. So we're gonna keep on going. But Jim, as always, thank you for joining me, man. It's the best chat, and we should
always a pleasure.
It really is, and we should definitely do it. I don't know when the next big event is, but in a couple of months we should come back and do it again, just because there's always so much. I could have gone on for hours, genuinely. I mean, I could have gone on for hours and hours, so we'll definitely have you back. But thank you everyone for listening as well. Make sure you check out the Q&A episode and I'll call it the regular episode. Doesn't make any sense. It will also drop. So you get 3 Simon Miller Pro Wrestling podcasts this week. You can also check it out on YouTube if that's how you like to consume your audio. Just youtube.com/The Miller Report Rules. If you're on iTunes, give us 5 stars. Like I say, keep an eye out for 2 more podcasts this week. Keep watching wrestling. Keep having fun.
That's such good value.
It is. You're right.
It really.